jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show.
Join us as we cover many an insane movie and numerous cult TV phenomenons. Are you ready to get jacked up? Are you with us? Then listen on.
Listener discretion is advised. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show.
And welcoming back, it's Faith and Corey of MST3k a day. How are you?
Good. How you doing today, bud?
I cannot complain. So, just doing another casual chat about the top 10 Mystery Science Theater KTMA era episodes. We just thought, hey, well, might as well just start ranking them by era. Just a fun kind of side project, because we did kind of originally start out as an MST3k inspired podcast, but we hadn't really been doing enough of that, even though we almost always like reference that or Joe Bob or Elvira every episode. Back into the fold of things. So just as a fun starter, Faith and Corey, was this your original first season, or did you come way back on it when it was already big on Comedy Central?
No, I hadn't heard about KTMA until many years after I started watching MST in season 1, early in season 1. I don't remember exactly what episode it was, but it was sometime early within the first half of season 1, late in 1989. And KTMA weren't really available until, at least not to me, until the internet was around and people started uploading them to YouTube and so on.
Yeah.
And me, I didn't start watching until 91, so I came late to the game. KTMA, I know some of the movies unriffed, so that's where I kind of come into things.
Right. It is like they're antenna channel movies, so they kind of already speak for themselves. And I did a dry run of it, definitely pre-college. You could find just about every MST3k episode through MST3k Archive and all the other projects that were still keeping it alive post GeoCities. But I remember I always wanted to revisit them eventually, just hadn't made time for it. And because I just remembered, for the most part, they didn't really, S.J. Elvis Weinstein, was the original servo and played Earnhardt, said for the most part, they were just improvising, and caught wind.
They weren't writing anything back then. What we see on KTMA is basically the writing room, what they did in the writing room during Comedy Central and Sci-Fi.
Exactly. Dictating.
Start the movie and throw whatever bio you could at it and write down the good ones. And the KTMAs are fascinating, though, because Faith and I love to riff movies. I mean, we riff real life. We riff everything.
Same way. I could never get over it. And I got in so much trouble. It's like, shh, stop. We're watching the NBA game. But that guy, he's running so awkwardly. Yeah.
But KTMA is great because since they weren't writing riffs, they didn't have, 700, jokes, throughout the whole episode like they do in the, seasons 1 through 13 now. And
oh, totally.
So there's a lot of room for the viewer to riff along with Joel and the bots. So I find that great. That's a lot of fun because you can riff with them.
1,000%. And it gets annoying how, I would see some people just mock it. And it's like, well, again, every project, people will do it even nowadays with a movie. They'll look at a deleted saying, "Oh, that looked poorly filmed," or anything. It's like, yeah, well, they had to film something, and they didn't. This is years before digital and everything, where you can figure it out there on the spot. They were shooting on film, or in this case, it even looked like videotape at times. It's like, yeah, they got to where they got because they did enough practicing and finding their rhythm. So I always considered it a rough draft. And I know Joel kind of, did the whole, it's season 0. It's, it's not really canon, but it's somewhere in that, asylum of the various experiments. And I think, like you say, yeah, the various classic 70s, movies that are on here, as well as just some other obscurities, really just kind of set the bar. And eventually you are going to come across them. And even if you don't have access to KTMA episodes or even YouTube for whatever reason, you're going to find them in one of those, cheesy B movies, titles, 10 packs,
Right.
Especially The Last Chase and Death Flight. I've seen those on there a bunch of times. Even Time of the Apes and the Sandy Franks I've been seeing more often.
Right. Yeah,
Yes.
Death Flight. We were just talking about that. The Last Chase, Death Flight, Superdome. Those were classic. A lot of some of them were like not Armageddon, but like everything's going wrong. What did you call it?
The disaster movies
disaster
of the 70s.
movies, right,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, totally.
Disaster movies.
Yeah.
And
City on Fire just got a Blu-ray release.
oh, did it?
You can see all that carnage.
Nice. And they would get a whole bunch of high good names,
yeah,
that
the
all-star
big names,
cast,
yeah.
and throw them into a movie with a basic story, and there you go, cheesy 70s TV movie.
Yeah, everyone acts like it was just Irwin Allen. I'm like, everybody was getting in on it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
definitely.
Totally. So I guess I'll let we both got the list in front of us. I guess I'll let you start off. Whether you want to go from in no order from top to bottom or whatever, it doesn't matter, and I'll follow your.
We can go backwards. Actually, probably better start at 10 and go up.
Okay, perfect. So Gamera versus Guiron. Yeah.
Gamera versus Gyron. Yeah.
Gyron, I bet. Yeah, sorry. And correct me if I'm wrong. Is this the one that they're doing this season of season 13, or is that a different one?
No, they're doing Gauss, right?
No. Season 13 is no. The season 13 is going to be Jiger, I think.
That's what it was. Okay,
Jiger.
yeah.
It's one that they haven't riffed before.
That's what I was thinking of. Because I when I went for the Gameras initially, I was like, hey, they never did do this one, so I had to watch it, without the riffing, and I didn't mind it. But it's before you get to Super Monster, which is just awful stock footage. Oh god. So yeah, Guiron. Yeah, I'm with you. I think the riffs are really strong on this one, and they're just so enjoying themselves. Just the rhythm is just. It just puts a shit-eating grin on one's face. You just can't help it.
Yeah, right about now is it's KTMA's number 8. It was episode 8. So by this point, we're close to halfway. The halfway mark is when they started to kind of get into a rhythm of throwing more riffs at the movie. Early on in the first handful of episodes, they really didn't say much. There was just the occasional quip here and there. But by this time, by the Gamera movies, they started to really get into a groove, and you can definitely tell in excuse me, during Gyron that they were starting to feel a little more comfortable at the quips that they were throwing out. And even if they weren't hysterical, there's still enough to give you a smile, and
Yeah, you can't blame them for wanting to do this even better, during initial Comedy Central run. It's like, we found our gist with the goofy monster movies, Gamera's really neat, man. And I'm looking back at my notes. This was a fun revisit. It really was.
At least in the Comedy Central era, they separated the Gamera movies between other episodes. Because during KTMA, they went
back to back. Yeah.
Right, yeah, they started
Oh.
with Gamera versus Baragon in episode 4, and then went to the first Gamera movie, Gamera, just Gamera by itself, and then Gauss and Zigra, and then finally to Gyron, where we are now. And I mean, they're just back to back to back. They just, for what is that, over a month, they watched Gamera movies.
But who doesn't love a good Gamera movie?
Well, yeah, but people might have been getting.
I see people smack talk Gamera, but I love Gamera. And I mean, that's definitely what both my uncles and my father associated when they saw the show. They're like, yeah, surely they're doing a Gamera, DVD pack. I'm like, yes, they have, and it is pressing. Yeah, no, I'm with you. Like the host segments, they really do find even just some other fun stuff. It's great seeing Trace, to do both some very clever riffings this time around, as well as some actual singing. I was like, wow, okay. So he proved his skills there in that category early on, before he went back to just doing the art department stuff and, hamming it up as Dr. F.
Yeah, you don't see too much of his singing. Once Kevin Murphy came in, and
Kevin's vocals.
He had the voice to, so he'll take most of the songs and let everybody else focus on everything, other stuff.
Yeah, let them put out their backs doing the puppeteering. Let Kevin sing.
Although everybody participated in writing lyrics for songs. Frank did a lot of lyrics. Mike wrote most of the music for it because he's the music man, because he plays piano. But everybody was writing lyrics and stuff. But yeah, the singing, they left the singing up to Kevin most of the time.
And it does
Who doesn't
make
love
sense.
a good servos?
Right? Who doesn't love a good servo? But no, it does kind of make sense after a while, because I mean, when you come up with all these wacky songs, I mean, you kind of are doing not just riffs with the piano, but you're also literally just like, what can I think that will go to this tune? So I just always thought it made sense to me, like you say, how, of course, he's playing Michael Feinstein, parodying him in those segments. Yeah. And yeah, of course, Kevin, he's the new guy, but he's also just a very charismatic guy. So yeah, of course, he's going to sing whatever silly tune they come up with for him. Oh, man. So our next pick at number 9 is Legend of the Dinosaurs. So yeah, what really got me for this, I was just really, like you guys say, they really don't riff on it much towards the end, and we're, shit's hitting the fan. And of course, how can you not talk during a bunch of outrageous, fighting and cliff jumping and, avalanches. So yeah, and just other stock footage that may or may not be entirely convincing, but I really dug how they did in one segment, they did a mock sitcom moment. And then it's like, that was pretty clever. That would have been cool to see them try that again later on. They didn't, but they would more often just make fun of sitcom characters like Urkel and what have you. But Joel did one hell of a Bob Hope impression.
Yeah, he did.
I did not see that coming. I was like, oh my God, that's awesome. Say what you want about Bob Hope being a shitty person. That, at the time, it was fun to make fun of all those classic 30s and 40s icons.
Yeah, absolutely. And those guys are just an encyclopedia of classic comedians and actors and movies. And
Totally.
It was Kevin Murphy who said that their was it the very expensive educations wasted on modern pop culture. That's how he described their jobs.
That's 1,000% it. This is like, what the hell am I doing with my life? I'm watching batshit crazy movies and comment. And I do wonder how many people, when they did commentary tracks, got inspired by that show. I really do.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I know they were kind of a thing, especially during Laserdisc, but you kind of do want to know, is like, what was the real deal?
Most commentary tracks are just directors and producers talking about, oh yeah, when we filmed this scene, it was, during the day, and we did this and that. MST is really the first ones to take it to that level of, these are terrible movies. We're gonna exploit that.
Yeah.
This movie in particular, Legend of the Dinosaurs, its original title was Legend of Dinosaurs and Monster Birds. I'm not really sure why. I don't remember too many monster birds.
It had the pterodactyl
The
thing.
pterodactyl, but it's not like it was enough to add it into the title as an additional creature, in my opinion.
Yeah, but if
It's just not a dinosaur, so,
it would have made better sense had they just done a double bill with an actual pterodactyl dinosaur movie. But, yeah.
right? Yeah, absolutely. I know Faith loves this movie, though.
Well, they sort of ripped off Jaws a lot with this one. This was the one where they had you had the fake dinosaur in the water with the fake scales or whatever. And I was like, wow, that's right out of Jaws with the fake fin.
Yeah, it was like made in like 81 or something like that, but I'm with you. It's just so much more fun than some of today's creature features where, again, you're just too distracted by the actors not being anything more than reality show stars or the creature just being CGI abominations. And here it's just, like I say, it is intense, even though it is kind of just out there in terms of plot.
No, what she means is, this was made actually in 77. Jaws was made in 75. She's talking about when the kids were in the water with the fake fins scaring people.
Right. And but
so, there was that part of it, and there were other scenes from that movie that were totally a ripoff of Jaws. They really did take a lot of the dynamics of Jaws, or the basic scenes in Jaws, and threw them into this movie however they could.
No, I get it, and I'm just saying, compared to most knockoff movies, it just seems to just be having fun doing its unoriginal thing, as opposed to others where you're just like, oh, this is so boring. Of course the sheriff's going to save the day. Of course, damsel's going to go around running around. But there are moments where you're like, Jesus.
The Japanese are really good at that, though. Coming out with those crazy big monsters and just having a good time with it, for sure.
Oh, totally. So your next pick was number 8, which was Humanoid Woman.
Humanoid Woman, definitely an odd film, to be sure.
Another dubbed, Russian movie. Just like, man, okay. And very inspired acting, but it's also, it's dubbed, so somebody's going to be lost in translation. And it's kind of in Star Trekville, where you got, actor in heavy makeup trying to be a cyborg, and it is an oddity, but it's fairly watchable. I just don't recall as much riffing, but
it's watchable. It this is episode 11. Again, they were getting their this one followed Cosmic Princess, so they were
yes,
those 2 episodes back to back. They were the women movies, these and
right,
and so it was definitely an interesting movie. It was a lot of fun because they had it was taking place in a futuristic world, and there were robots, walking around like maids, like housekeeping robots.
Westworld, yeah.
right. And there was the part where Joel says to Servo, hey Tom, how about that robot? And Servo's like, what a babe, and so it was a lot of fun, with that aspect of it. It's actually not that bad of a movie, to be honest. It's really not. It's it is one of the more fun movies from that season.
Totally. Because it's like Cosmic Princess is just kind of, Time of the Apes is just so batshit crazy, you just can't look away. While Cosmic Princess is kind of more is like, okay, take the 2 lesser episodes of Space 1999 and just mash them together.
Right.
You got a very convoluted get together. I think that pretty much sums it up. It's just unusual curiosity, and it even reminds me of a Roger Corman movie made years later, Android. It's just being competent enough just is material enough, apparently. It's just it's just old school, Arthur C. Clarke-ish, type sci-fi. So you're just like, this wouldn't fly with today's crowd, but for those looking for old, deep sci-fi, it's not particularly bad. It's not bad.
Yeah.
So My next pick is number 7, City on Fire. Just a bananas cast, and I'm sorry, I will take this over Backdraft or any other bad firefighter movie. There's just something about it. Yes, they're underdeveloped, but it's just, it is. I hate to say this because I hate to say, oh, a movie's worth it just for the destruction, but it does keep my attention and have me on the edge, even though there is some convolutedness. It's like, Jesus, how many murderers are here at this fire department? But Leslie Nielsen does steal the show as the Crooked Mayor. And
oh, yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I could have used a little more backstory, but to his fairness, he is playing a politician. So, yes, of course he has different faces. One minute he's a kiss ass, the next minute he's like, oh no, I want to do something heroic. So,
that sounds like a typical politician. Other than if the heroic part's going to help him in the next campaign, then he's it's all good. Otherwise, they'll send somebody else.
Fun fact: Jim Wynorski used this in one of his silly schlocky B movies.
Oh, did he really?
All the explosions and everything. At times, you can even see Leslie Nielsen in the background. It's not meant either. It involves, again, it's like a compilation of all these kinds of movies where just these federal agents are going after a pyromaniac terrorist.
But again, this falls right into that same category Faith was talking about, the 70s disaster movies. You throw a whole bunch of good actors into it, and you got a very basic plot, and you run with it. You've got Shelley Winters, Leslie Nielsen, Ava Gardner, Henry Fonda. It's
stacked. People we've been seeing act since the 40s, and here they all are here. And I don't know what it is. I've noticed some actors who jokingly call themselves Canucks knows this. It seems like a lot of people seem to always just make fun of Canadians as just being cheap, but that's just it. You can make these movies very easier and
cheaper in Canada. Absolutely.
Yeah. I am a big fan of their various sci-fi horror shows, and I think this is no different for me. It's like this perfectly acceptable, junk food. Just take it and run with it. And they do seem to have fun just kind of reacting to the various stars in this movie, the Riffers, and I just don't find it as overlong or tedious as most disaster movies, even for that matter.
No, actually, it's not. No, it's actually. Like I said, it's one of the, one of the better movies that they riffed. Right up there with all these disaster 70s movies. These are some of the best ones from KTMA. SST Death Flight, City on Fire.
I don't think these movies are that cheesy at all. They're entertaining. They're watchable.
Especially compared to most, where you just go, where did the budget go? Oh, that's right, to the main star.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. They gave it to all the stars and the little bit of explosions they had, right?
Totally. Okay, so your next one is The Last Chase. Now, this is a very intense one, and it's often mocked just because Lee Majors is in it, trying to become a big movie star that didn't pan out. But he might not have had fun making it, but it didn't really necessarily have anything to do with the movie quality, just, personal affairs, it's being cheated on behind his back. But, yeah, so this is our second one on here that Burgess Meredith, from Rocky and Batman is in. And I'm just like, wow, that's an unusual one. And I saw people comparing it even to, Rollerball. I'm like, that's an interesting comparison. It does kind of have that whole Running Man kind of appeal. Just the whole, an actual war being played out, and it's a personal vendetta, people abusing technology.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a great movie. I'll be honest. I don't mind this movie at all. Again, right up there with it was made in the 80s. It was 1981, so it's not the 70s disaster movies, but Lee Majors, Burgess Meredith, Chris Makepeace, who people might know from My Bodyguard.
Yeah, he's in here.
Meatballs.
Yep. And Meatballs.
Meatballs.
Right.
Yes.
Meatballs, that's right. But this is a great story, and which is still relevant today because the story is about they had to stop using gasoline. They had to stop using vehicles. Any internal combustion engine because it was destroying the planet and so on and so forth. So they banned. The United States becomes more of a police state type of country. We lose a lot of our rights, and they ban the internal combustion engine and to clean up the planet and so on. And
right. We ask them to do their job, but then they just take anything useful away. So then it's like, yeah, I can kind of buy into that. There would be something heavy-handed that goes on.
Right. Well, but it's not just the banning of cars. They go much further than that. You can tell that they're very, like I said, it's more of a police state. They're very, conscientious of anybody that's against the system or against the government.
Right.
Quieted, needs to be,
You're instantly in our system, and you might not even know it until it's too late.
This one guy, is driving his car across the country to get to the free zone in California, and they send out a retired pilot to literally blow him away. I'm thinking to myself, this is one car driving across the United States. Who's going to really see him?
Yeah.
How much could this really threaten the order of things in the country? One guy in one vehicle, maybe a handful of people will see him driving across the country. So what? And yet they put together this old jet to send out a pilot to kill him. And, it's just, it just shows how much the country had, in this movie, how much the country had fallen into that police state kind of world where we got to silence anybody who's against the system. And
You're right. We think Britain's chaotic, but I can totally see America getting as bad as this movie depicts. And like you say, I saw people comparing it to Battlefield Earth. I'm like, well, see, here's the thing. A lot of thought went into this one.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Versus that one. And, so yeah, Burgess Meredith does overact, but that's just kind of part of the charm, and it's part of the popcorn element. It was like, yeah, that was going to happen one way or the other.
Yeah, I think that's just the way he is. Really, he overacts in most things he does. Look at Rocky.
Yeah, you're right. I'm gonna rock your spaceship. I'm gonna rock your car.
We love these dystopian movies. Any movie about a dystopian future is just fantastic.
Totally. And perfect for them because they kind of also just kind of go with the movie, and it doesn't end anticlimactically like Hangar 18 where you're just like, whoa, what happened? And that's another one. I find it watchable, but yeah, there's a lot of things that are incomplete. Like there's barely a first draft. So,
well, no doubt that there's quote unquote spaceship in that one. It wasn't a spaceship. It looked like a box you would put like a toy in or something. That thing was just weird. It didn't look like a spaceship at all.
Oh man. Okay, so next one up is Gamera versus Gaios. Gaios. I can never pronounce this, but
Gaios. Yeah, I think it's Gaios.
Yeah, and again, they do it again later on Comedy Central era, but I kind of do the whole Evil Dead versus Evil Dead 2. It's like, this is a rough draft and this is the director's cut, later on. So
right.
I really do think they found their stride here for the most part. And same thing with we'll get to it with Time of the Apes. It's like, okay, I kind of don't want to see the same episode twice. I'd rather see, the same thing. But in all fairness, both cuts of it do have their highlights. So it really is worth. If you're going to see any episode that was done differently, yeah, definitely see this one in Time of the Apes. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, this is definitely a good one. Episode 6 of KTMA, and then I forget where it is in season 3, but they, definitely, Gamera is always fun, and they started to find their stride here, and yeah, it's definitely a good, one of the better Gamera movies. Gauss is definitely one of the more interesting creatures that Gamera had to fight.
Yeah, brutal, baby. So I think you summed it up. Next one, let's talk about SST Death Flight, my personal favorite.
Again, great movie, yeah.
And So yeah, it's just like the usual. It's just like a giant all-star cast, and becomes an airport type movie midway through, and people mock the characters. I just love how they just cut to the chase. It's like, I'm sleeping with you, or I'm got a vendetta with you, and it's like, okay, and so now you got this very fancified flight, and it's out of control, and it's just so wild seeing a young, pre-comedy Billy Crystal, as essentially the bellhop of this fancy flight, and he gets into an argument with an intrusive passenger played by John D. Lancey years before he was Q on Star Trek.
A lot of people don't realize that's Q.
They're just like, hey, who's the homophobic guy? I'm waiting for him to die. I'm like,
hey,
that's Q.
That guy kind of looks familiar. Where do I know him from? It's like, that's Q, yeah.
Yeah, and I like how the pilots have all, what you need in a movie like this, all the intensity, close-ups. You're like, I'm going to do this. We're going to crash.
It's funny, though, because with this movie, you've got all these people coming on this flight, right? Basically, it's the Concorde. And,
years before Elon Musk was trying to do it.
Yeah.
So they're taking the Concorde across the, across the Atlantic and so on, breaking, speed records and so on. But you got all these people on this flight. You got Peter Graves and
Peter Graves, yeah.
Right, Peter Graves is there, and yet the woman who was with the guy who played Q, the woman who's with him, she knows him. She used to work with him. It's like, wait a minute, how many friggin' people are traveling on the Concorde that these two just happen to bump into each other on the same flight? It's not that small of a world.
Right.
And then of course you've got the extra pilot on board who just happened to have lost his job because of the current pilots turning him in. He winds up saving the day, and that kind of thing. And it just so many coincidences that just would not happen in real life. In real life, that plane would have gone down and everybody would have been dead.
Mm-hmm.
But in Hollywood, it's 70s disaster film. We'll throw Burgess Meredith in there, Doug McClure, and a couple of blondes, and
And if anything, David Lau Rich, who was a TV director, can at least say he made at least one very fun TV movie, especially compared to, Concorde Airport 4.
I'm not familiar with that one, but
that was the fourth airport movie. It wasn't very good.
But yeah, this is definitely a fun movie.
This is way better, yeah. And like you say, turn your brain off. You're like, okay, too many coincidences, and yet it seems to be having fun with itself, which is more than enough.
Yeah, you got a little bit of love triangle going on in there, and just like Titanic, disaster movie, ship going down, love triangle. Okay, we got a movie.
Right. Barbara Anderson, Tina Louise from Gilligan's Island is also in here. It's like, man. And once again, like you say, Burgess Meredith, Brock Peters, Robert Reed, even Regis.
Robert Reed, Susan Strasberg.
Yeah, something. Next up, I'll let you guys talk about Superdome.
Superdome is not one we're too familiar with.
Okay, all good. So
we started watching it recently and didn't get all the way through, unfortunately. But
I had trouble with it initially, but this time around, for whatever reason, I just was having fun, which is how the first part is basically you're like, oh, is it going to be like, Black Monday or whatever, where there's like a terrorist attack on a sports stadium, and then midway through it becomes kind of a slasher.
That would have been better, I think, actually. I think I like the terrorist idea.
Yeah, I think both parts are interesting. They're both very intense. It's just getting there is just a bit of a chore, but I don't think the cast is as good. Obviously, this is another one they would put in the various, 20 movie packs and just heavily promote the Tom Selleck aspect. And it's like, this is like his third movie. So yeah, no, he's not going to be in it all that much. The deaths are fun. The tension is pretty big. It may not be, I've seen Jerry Jameson do some way better, shocking TV movies and what have you, but this was actually all right this time around. First time I was bored, but this time around, this is just a more, like you say, just fun, cheesy disaster all-star movie. Near the end, Servo and company do get to do a Smoke on the Water riff.
Nice.
You'll know when you get there.
There was some people may, if they ever decide to delve into KTMA and watch this one, Van Johnson is in this movie. He was in San Francisco International.
Yeah. So much like Peter Graves, it is kind of like you realize these guys have made more than one MST3k appearance. So
Yep, absolutely. You know, with this movie, if they had focused a little more on Tom Selleck, it probably would have been a better hit, you know?
Yeah, he should have been the sports athlete who sacrifices his career to stop the bomb. But
Right. Because again, it's not, you know, it's not that bad of a story. You know, you got the Super Bowl. A lot of people like football.
The killer is actually kind of freaky. They know how to frame him. He's not, and at first I saw some people saying not enough of a good bad guy. I'm like, well, in all fairness, they're trying to be suspenseful and they're just relying on 70s self-indulgence. So but at least they made him blend in as opposed to just, you know, instantly look like an asshole. So of course he's the bad guy. No, they kind of play it up and you're like, yeah, no, I didn't expect that actually.
And of course, you got Bubba Smith is in this from Police Academy.
Gotta have a Police Academy connection.
And Emmett Walsh, he's in this, and he's a lot of people will recognize him from various movies.
Right.
You got quite a few people in here that you know, that are very recognizable.
1000%. So, all good. I'll let you guys talk about Time of the Apes. You know, how did this vary from the later season-free treatment?
Well, like, you know, Time of the Apes came again towards the end of KTMA, so they were definitely in a better place during this one on this list. But you know, season 3 for me is when they really started to get into a good groove. They were really honing their craft well and writing better riffs, and it was just getting much funnier.
Why do you think that is? Because I see so many other people say, oh, they don't get to their greatest until season 4. And I'm like, I don't know. I remember plenty of season 2 and 3 episodes.
Right. For me, like I said, season 3 is the one that really, in my opinion, they start to really get much better at their specific craft of comedy. And I mean, it really it boils down to personal preference, but in my opinion, it's just the more you do something, the better you're going to get at it. Which is
1000%.
Which is why, in my opinion, seasons 8, 9, and 10 are the best, without a doubt, the best. I mean, season 8 is the best season of all time. They really were in the pocket on that one, and just really, I mean, every episode is just phenomenal, hysterical all the way through.
The evolution of comedians and
of comedians who created their own brand of comedy, essentially.
Right.
Yeah, there were a couple of people that made fun of things before then, Beavis and Butthead and so on. But, you know, for the most part, they created their own brand of comedy. And yeah, as you know, season 3 is when they really started to get into a groove and started to really chop out some really, really good stuff. I also think Mary Jo Pehl didn't come on until season 4. I think Bridget Jones Nelson actually came on before that, I believe, in either season 2 or 3.
I can't remember, but yeah, she was part of the writing staff.
They were getting more writers, you know, on the staff, so they started to get more people helping to write, and so that helps too. And and you know, I mean, Time of the Apes is a great KTMA episode. You know, it's a great movie for riffing, no matter whether it's MST or you're doing it on your own. It's just a lot of fun.
It's just a wild movie. It's easy to follow, even though it is convoluted. You're just like, okay, so at the end of the day, they try to escape this planet. Got wacky fight scenes.
Yeah, no, this one, I mean, they're trying to rip off Planet of the Apes, but in their own style, in their own way. Because in Time of the Apes, they don't leave the planet at all. They get frozen for hundreds of years, and then so they you know. So they definitely made it their own, and it is a fun movie for a Japan movie. For a Japanese
yeah.
science fiction movie, it's pretty good.
Yeah, they did like I think Mighty Jack also here, but it was just more fun seeing them do time.
It's more fun than Mighty Jack for sure, and I would agree with that absolutely.
Because and like you say, I mean, yeah, you see them do what they do later in the re-riff, which is just like react to the characters, you know, over exaggerated, you know, expressions and overdone close-ups. You're just like, whoa, what's happening? What's happening? And like you say, they just go along with it and just. Oh,
I mean, yeah, but Mighty Jack is a the movie is made up of the first and last episodes of a TV show. So think about that. They took the first episode of a show, skipped everything in the middle, and then stuck the last episode onto it, and they call it a movie.
Totally.
People wonder why it's kind of convoluted. Well,
and I mean, I hear they do that in Britain sometimes also. I thought America was the biggest offender, but I know Britain, like, each time it airs NCIS, it takes the best highlights of each season and edits it together as a 2-hour movie. I'm like, that's so unheard of. You're going to lose something, but apparently it's big over there. So I'm like, okay, I guess with better editors, it can work as long as you're taking, like you say, more than just the pilot and the finale. Because, that would be like if you did, like, the first 10 minutes of G.I. Joe or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles episodes. Like, you see Shredder or Cobra Commander hamming up, and then you see after the fact where they've all defeated them, and I will rise again. I'm like, well, I kind of got to have a story.
Right.
It only works if I'm a 5-year-old. But, yeah, this is fun. And I guess this just brings us to our number one, Phase 4. I just had fun watching this, you know, another just mad scientist playing God formula, and just, again, ant mayhem, and it's got a moody score, and they definitely are very intrigued by this movie, so it's fun.
Yeah, you know, this is episode 9, so it's like midway through the season, yet there were some really good riffs in this movie, and I think they definitely had a lot of fun with this one. Faith is a huge Bug fan.
I love Bug movies. This was great. Bug movies are fantastic.
Yeah.
Totally.
So this one for me is a great movie. I don't think it's a bad movie at all.
And those visuals, man, that's all best.
Science fiction wise, it's a decent movie. I think things got way cheesier the further they get into, later seasons.
Yeah, this one definitely has more. Is more of a serious type of film. It wasn't meant to be cheese in this one. It looks like they were, when they did KTMA, they had access to all the movies that the KTMA Channel 23 had copyright access to. So basically, KTMA said, "This is our list of movies you can choose from that we're allowed to show on our channel, so you can pick whatever one you want and do what you want with it." And this looks like one of the more serious pictures that they chose to riff on. And, it was based on an H.G. Wells short story, Empire of the Ants. And it's loosely based on that, granted, but, most people would say that probably Lynn Frederick is the best part of this movie, the girl in it. She's really cute. But honestly,
don't you mean the bugs?
But no, really. I mean, the story is it's a little slow going at first, but once they get into their little competition with the ants, it starts to get kind of interesting, and to see who's going to really come out on top. Are these ants going to outwit these scientists, or the fact that they're communicating with the ants at all is interesting. But this one has some good riffs in it. I got to give it to Joel and them for just throwing random on-the-cuff, quips at a movie. This one had some. We just watched this one earlier today. We rewatched it, and like I said, more riffs than I remembered that were really good. We were laughing pretty good at this one, so that's why this is up at number 1. It's a great story. It's a decently made movie, and the riffs are really good. Considering they didn't write anything back then. So bravo on Phase 4 for sure.
Totally. Very well said. So, where can we find you on the interwebs?
Well, like I said, I run the MST3k a day on Instagram account. You get a what I call a meme of MST every day, and if it's an anniversary of an episode, I post that episode that day, and if it's not an anniversary day, then I post a random episode. But you can get your daily MST laugh from me on Instagram. And
Sure.
the rest of the internet, I'm just Corey Grundstein. The rest of the internet, it's not really too interesting, but
All good. Faith, what are you up to?
Not up to too much. I do have the wonderful women of MST3K on Facebook. It's not doing too much right now. I'm just getting it going. But we do celebrate all the women, Pearl, Gypsy, Felicia, Bees McKeever. We celebrate all of them there.
Thank you ever so much for being on here.
absolutely.
It's a long time coming.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us, man. We appreciate it.
We'll return after these messages.
Hey, feeling down? Feeling low? Not enough podcasts about movies in your life? Why not try
They must be destroyed on sight.
the new Podcast Cure-All? Sure to get you right with the world and on a path to better living. We have exploitation, we have Italian horror, we have zombies, we have slashers, we have crime films, we have spaghetti westerns, we even have sci-fi and sex comedies. So take a dose of
They must be destroyed on sight.
as needed, and let the hosts, Lee Russell, Daniel Harper, Paul Romali, and the odd guest host cure what ails you.
Warning, may cause atrophy, African consumption, black fever, bone shave, chin cough, colic, cramp colic, dropsy of the brain, elephantitis, grocer's itch, jaundice, mania, miasma, mortification, palsy, Pott's disease, rheumatism, scurvy, St. Anthony's fire, summer complaint, and worm fit in some people. Consult a physician before listening.
Hey, I heard you like movies.
I heard you like to hustle.
I heard you like podcasts.
Well, guess what?
There's a podcast for you out there called The Home Video Hustle.
Damn right.
Every Friday, we talk about whatever movie PJ picks out the bag. What does that mean? Every Wednesday on our YouTube page, I put a bunch of movies in a bag, and PJ picks one out at random. And then we just watch it. We talk about it for maybe like an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever we feel like doing, wherever the conversation leads us.
But do we actually talk about the movie?
Most of the time.
Ah,
Tangents galore.
yes.
So believe me, we may be a movie podcast, but it's not always about movies. We might talk about video games,
Music.
Yeah, that's the big one, music. Sometimes we might get a little bit of politicalness in there.
Yes.
Sometimes we may just, we know what we like to do. We like to tell stories, PJ.
Ah, yes.
I am the master storyteller
Yes.
of the podcast realm. Undefeated. So if you like to hear about movies, video games, whatever foolishness comes to our mind, the most random stuff you could think of, check out the Home Video Hustle. You can find us on the Stitchers,
Yes.
the Google Play,
Yes.
Apple Podcasts,
What else?
Podbean,
What else?
Podcast Addict,
Goddamn.
all that. Ain't no reason you can't get your hustle on. We everywhere, worldwide, baby.
Hustle, motherfucking hustle.
Hey, we can't cuss in the promo, PJ.
Ah,
We gotta be family friendly. There may be podcasts out there that don't want his hair to say
ah, ah,
all
yeah.
that good fun stuff.
Well, you.
Don't run the listeners away, PJ.
Ah, I'm sorry.
But this is going kind of long.
Yes.
So we'll go end this and say, hey, check out the Home Video Hustle every Friday on all the various podcast outlets. Peace.
Peace.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster. And while Witch didn't make it to the top of the world, he did make the Gangs of Hollywood podcast. So join the gang and enjoy a movie review podcast about movie gangs, gangsters, mobsters, and the mayhem they cause. You can find GOH Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at GOH Pod at www.gohpod.com, as well as your favorite podcast listening app. And remember, Say hello to your little friend. For me.
If you take two old punk rockers who are past their prime, put them in front of a movie screen, and give them a podcast, what do you get? Cinema Punks. Cinepunks. It's the mixtape of movies.
Did you ever see a film at such a young age it left you traumatized with cinematic wounds? Necrophilia. It's a dead issue, man. Don't push it. Cinema Psyops is a weekly podcast documenting an ongoing experiment on the mind of an unwilling test subject.
No one should have to watch this movie.
Oh, no one should have to watch this?
No one should have to watch this movie.
Surprisingly, it's not a topic that a lot of people really want to tackle.
I'm shocked, prudes.
I know, really.
Right?
It's the next sexual frontier that no one wants to explore.
I am, in the most sincerest of senses, disappointed in you.
It takes a powerful goddess like Connie, jam her arm down the monster's throat and kill it. Oh, I'm still tripping out over that. Even as a kid, I was like, I gotta find a girl like that. Every week, I get a new look of disappointment that I never thought I could get out of her.
Unimaginable. At 12 years old, you should not be watching this movie.
Obviously.
At 13, you should not be. 14, you shouldn't be. I'm not entirely sure even 17-year-olds should be watching this.
Just because you're offended by something doesn't mean that you have the right to demand that it doesn't exist. Watching this film again, I had all of this like little nerd glee with everything that kept
little
popping
history
up.
doll
Yeah,
popping up
absolutely.
at you.
So I totally loved this film.
Hey, I know why you couldn't see that. It's because your brain's warped from watching this shit at 12 years old.
Yeah, this is a rough movie. I told you ahead of time when we were getting ready to do it that it was
How
going to be
did
a
you
rough
watch
one.
this shit at 12?
Because physical wounds heal, cinematic ones don't. Listen to Cinema Psyops.
Hey everybody, I'm Corey.
And I'm Zach, and we're the hosts of Podcasting After Dark, a cast dedicated to late-night horror and sci-fi of the 80s and 90s, often found on HBO and Cinemax.
You know, the movies your parents didn't want you watching as a kid. You can find us every other week on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and Stitcher.
This is what you want.
This is what you get.
It's time, let's check our cue, baby. Pair it with a couple brews, baby. We love good movies. We love the bad ones too. So we watch them all and pass their lessons on to you. Oh yeah. Everything I learned from movies helps to make life a little bit groovy. Whether one laughs, plot holes, or gratuitous movies. It's time to get busy with your friend Steve and Izzy. At eilfm.podbean.com.
Hi, everybody. It's Mac Jackson. I wanted to invite you to a new site called the Forever Adventure Network. This website has everything. Pictures, videos, blogs. There's original music by Harmony Constant. 2 podcasts. One is the MacGyver Podcast, where we celebrate Richard Dean Anderson, his iconic roles, and how it's influenced our lives. There's episode discussions, interviews, and life conversations. The second podcast is the Never Gets Old Podcast, where we celebrate all the best things that we love in life, from TV, movies, music, and comics. The site is also the home for the MacGyver SG-1 audio series, an ongoing adventure series that continues the adventures of MacGyver and SG-1. There are also multiple stores to choose from for all of your pop culture and adventure needs. Come on by and check us out today. And thanks for joining the adventure.
We now continue with our program.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening.
It's a jacked up review show.